Welcome back to Mia Horror Stories. Tonight's tale, I'm the only truck driver on Route 66 tonight, is best experienced in the dark, which is why the screen will stay black. No distractions, no flashing images, just you, your imagination, and the story. So sit back, relax, and listen all the way to the end, if you dare. The first weird thing was the mile marker. I passed 214 twice. Same green rectangle, same little scab of reflective tape peeled on the right edge. Same black spray painted dot under the 4, like somebody had tested a can and walked away. The first time, I clocked it without thinking. The second time, I sat up straighter, pulled my eyes off the ribbon of asphalt, and looked for the turnoff I must have missed. There wasn't one. Just the shoulder, a ragged line of tumbleweed caught in the fence, and the desert stretching out like somebody had ironed it flat. The cab smelled like stale coffee and diesel, with that faint hot plastic note that comes when your phone's been charging too long on a cheap cord. My dash lights washed everything in a low green, the kind that makes your hands look a little sick. The wipers ticked once for no reason, dry glass squeaking, then stopped. A semi can do that. Weird voltage spike. A loose relay. Explainable. Still, my mouth went dry. I eased off the throttle and let the rig settle into a steady hum. Trailer's load was paper towels boring, forgiving freight bound for a distribution center outside Oklahoma City. If I was honest, I'd taken this run because boring meant predictable. Predictable meant I could keep my brain from doing its favorite hobby at night, inventing tragedies. My name, S. Evan Harlow, and I've been driving long enough that the road noise feels like a second heartbeat. Not proud long, not romantic long, just long enough that my shoulders know the wheel better than they know a couch. I was alone tonight because I like it that way. Also because I don't sleep well with another man breathing in the dark. That's not an insult, it's just a fact about me. I reached for the CB out of habit, thumbed it on. Static, then a distant, slow voice like it was coming through damp cotton. Anyone eastbound, Kingman to Seligman. I leaned closer. You're breaking up. Say again. A hiss, then nothing. The phone in its cradle said I had 2 bars. My map app still showed a clean blue line, the kind that makes you trust it. Route 66 wasn't a single continuous road anymore, half history, half frontage roads, half towns that grew around the myth, and then got hollowed out when the interstate came. Tonight, I was riding a stretch that ran close enough to the old route to wear its name like a souvenir. I checked the last sign I'd seen, Crookton Road, then Ash Fork. That made sense. Mile 214 didn't. The radio cut in again, clearer this time. Evan, that you, Harlow? My hand tightened on the wheel before my brain caught up. The voice was familiar in a way I didn't love, like an old song you'd forgotten you hated. Yeah, I said. Who's this? Matt Cray. You got your ears on. Been a minute. I let out a breath through my nose. Matt Cray, Jesus. You still running nights? Trying to. You still driving like you got somewhere to be. Paper towels don't care what time they arrive, I said. And then, because the road had already started picking at my nerves, I added, where are you? A laugh, soft and short. Not on your screen, apparently. I'm west of you, somewhere around hell. I don't even know. My dash says 214. My eyes flicked to the dark outside like the number might be floating over the desert. Don't do that. Do what? Say 214. I just passed it twice. There was a pause where I could hear his engine through the mic, that deep working rumble. Okay, he said slowly. That's why I called. Why are you calling me specifically? Because you answer, he said, like it was obvious. Then, quieter, and because I'm pretty sure I'm the only other idiot out here. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that I'd seen a set of taillights ahead at some point, hours back, that there were always cars, always someone, even if you couldn't see them. But the truth was, since Flagstaff, it had been mostly emptiness and the occasional reflective eyes at the edge of my beams. Are you on the interstate? I asked. Frontage, he said. Old alignment. Don't ask me why. Dispatch wanted the scenic route, I guess. Dispatch doesn't want scenic, I muttered. Dispatch wants cheap. Yeah, well, cheap's what we get. Another small click, my dash cam adjusting focus. And for a second, I watched my own face in the tiny preview screen. Eyes a little too wide, jaw set like I was chewing a problem. You sound jumpy, Matt said. I'm tired. I'm fine, I said too quickly. He didn't push. Matt had always had that talent, knowing when to poke and when to let the silence do the work. We weren't friends, not really. We'd run the same lanes years ago, shared a few late-night meals at truck stops, traded complaints about dispatch. And then life did what it does, split you into separate roads. A sign flashed past in my headlights. Cattle guard ahead. The letters glowed and vanished. My trailer gave a low groan as it rode over a slight dip. Evan, Matt said, you see anything weird? I almost laughed. That word again. Weird. Like we were in middle school trying to describe a teacher's new haircut. What kind of weird? I asked. Like, he said, and I could hear him thinking, like my phone keeps rerouting me in a loop. Like it thinks the road's closed and open at the same time. Like I keep seeing the same damn billboard. What billboard? The one for the diner, he said. Big yellow coffee cup. Lena's Best Pie on 66. I've passed it 3 times, and I haven't turned off once. My throat tightened. I knew that sign. Everybody who drove this way had a catalog of signs in their head. It was how you told time out here when your mind started slipping. I haven't seen Lena S., I said. Maybe you're on a different alignment. Maybe, I said, but my eyes were already scanning for the yellow cup like it might jump into my lane. The cab filled with a new sound, thin and metallic, my phone vibrating against the cradle. A call, unknown number. That happens. Robocalls don't respect geography. I didn't answer. Let it ring out. It called again immediately. My skin prickled along my forearms. I glanced at the screen. Still unknown. No spam label, just that blankness, like the network couldn't decide what it was. Who's calling? Matt asked, hearing the buzz through the mic. Unknown. Maybe dispatch. At this hour, I said, and then my phone did something I'd never seen it do. The screen flickered, went black, then came back with the map zoomed all the way out as if it had lost me. A little blue dot blinked in place, then jumped a half-inch east, then back, like a nervous animal. I steadied my breathing. Technology glitches, cold nights, towers far apart, but the unease had a shape now. It was the kind of thing that makes you notice every small noise, the faint rattle of the vent, the squeak of the seat spring when you shift, the whispery slap of the trailer's tarp straps, even though there were no tarp straps on this load. Evan, Matt said, you got a mile marker in sight. I leaned forward, squinting into my own headlights. The road bent gently right, then straightened into a long corridor of dark. A reflective sign appeared ahead. Green, white numbers. My stomach dipped before I could read it. 214. I didn't slow this time. I didn't want to give the road the satisfaction. "Yeah," I said. My voice sounded flat. "I see it." "Okay," Matt said. "So we're both seeing it." We rode like that for a minute, 2 engines talking through the air, the desert on either side holding its breath. Somewhere far off, a coyote yipped once, then shut up like it remembered something. I tried to picture my route as a line, a normal line. You start in California, you end in Oklahoma, you stop for fuel, you pee in questionable bathrooms, you keep going. Simple. That was the whole appeal. The private thing I didn't say, couldn't say, not to Matt, not to anyone, was that I'd started taking night runs after the accident because daylight made me see too much. Sunlight made every shadow on the road look like a body. Night blurred things. Night let me pretend the world was smaller than it really was. Now night was doing the opposite. A new sound came through my speakers, the faintest tone, like a distant dial-up whine, rising and falling. At first I thought it was my tinnitus. Then the CB squealed, and Matt cursed softly. "You hear that?" he asked. "Yeah, something S stepping on the channel." As if to prove him right, a third voice broke through, not static heavy like his had been at first, but too clean compressed, clipped, like it was coming from a recording. "Eastbound unit, pull over, hazard ahead." I stared at the road. No flashing lights, no reflective cones, no glow of emergency vehicles. Matt's voice snapped back in. "That ain't state troopers," he said. "No," I agreed. The clean voice repeated, identical. "Eastbound unit, pull over, hazard ahead." My hands tightened until my knuckles ached. The rational part of my brain started listing possibilities like it could bargain with them. Pranksters with a pirate radio setup, some local rancher with an old transmitter, a malfunctioning highway advisory system bleeding into CB frequencies. Explainable, explainable, explainable. Where would we even pull over? I asked. The shoulder here was narrow, sloping into gravel and scrub. Stopping a full rig on a blind curve was how you became a headline. "Next wide spot," Matt said, "or we keep rolling to the truck stop off Ash Fork." "There's a place in Seligman," I said automatically, because my brain was reaching for anything familiar. "Fuel lights, people." "Yeah," he said, and he sounded relieved, like he'd been hoping I'd say that. We could meet up, compare notes, maybe laugh about it in a lit parking lot like normal human beings. The clean voice cut in again, a little louder. "Eastbound unit, pull over now." I checked my mirrors. Nothing behind me, no headlights, no flashing bar, just the long dark ribbon and my own red marker lights bleeding into it. "Evan," Matt said, "what's your gut say?" My gut was a liar. My gut had screamed at me on sunny afternoons when a shadow crossed the road, and it was only a plastic bag. My gut had gone quiet the day I should have listened. I didn't trust it. But I trusted one thing. The idea of stopping out here alone made my skin crawl in a way I couldn't justify with logic. "We keep moving," I said, "to somewhere lit." "Okay," Matt said. "Okay, I'm with you." Ahead, the road forked subtle, more like an old split where the frontage peeled away from the newer alignment. 2 sets of reflectors. 2 possible blues lines, if your map app still believed in you. One sign half lit by my beams, the lettering faded. For a second, my map app recalculated and offered me a choice in the most casual tone. Continue for 12 miles. Alternative route saves 3 minutes. 3 minutes, like that mattered. The clean voice on the CB went quiet. Matt's engine noise shifted, like he was adjusting speed. "Which way you going?" he asked. I stared at the fork, at the faded sign, at the desert beyond that didn't care about my schedule or my fear or the numbers on a mile marker. If we stayed on the main line, we'd hit Seligman and lights and witnesses. If we took the alternative, we might shave 3 minutes, maybe rejoin farther ahead, maybe avoid whatever hazard someone was trying to warn us about. Or maybe we'd be the kind of idiots who chased the shortest line on a screen into the dark. My turn signal clicked once on its own when my hand brushed it. The sound was loud in the cab, too cheerful. I swallowed. "Matt," I said, "I'm not stopping out here." "I'm not asking you to," he said. "Just tell me left or right." And there it was, the first real choice of the night, sitting on the road like a coin flipped and not yet caught. Left toward the lights, right toward the shortcut. I kept my eyes on the fork, and my finger hovered over the turn signal, waiting for my brain to commit. The clean voice came back, closer this time, like someone had leaned toward a microphone. "Eastbound unit. Hazard confirmed. Reduce speed and prepare to stop." Matt swore, not loud, controlled, the kind of swear that meant he was already doing math in his head. "Evan," he said, "that's not a highway advisory. Those run on AM, not CB. And they don't say unit." I nodded even though he couldn't see me. My eyes were glued to the gauges now. Speed steady. Oil pressure good. Tanks climbing like they should. Fuel needle just under a quarter, enough to be annoying, not enough to be comforting. I'd planned to top off at Seligman. Planned is a strong word. Assumed. The road narrowed. The reflectors along the edge seemed closer together, blinking past like a countdown. "My app just flagged an incident," Matt said. "Says obstruction ahead. No details." "Same," I said, watching my screen redraw itself. A yellow triangle pulsed where the road forked. The alternative route was gone. Only one line now, stubbornly blue. "It wants me to keep going." "That's what worries me," Matt said. "If there was a real closure, it'd kick us off." The clean voice cut in again, overlapping him. "Eastbound unit. Stop immediately. Hazard ahead is life-threatening." I felt the old reflex twitch, the one that told me to comply, to be good, to follow instructions, so nothing bad happened. That reflex had been burned into me by uniforms and forms, and the day a man with a badge told me to sit down and wait while someone else scraped my windshield clean. "Where's this coming from?" I asked. Matt didn't answer right away. I heard a click, then another. "I'm scanning," he said, trying to get a bearing. The CB squealed, then spat out a burst of noise so loud I flinched. When it cleared, there was another voice, thin and breathless. "Hello? Anyone, please?" I leaned into the mic. "Say again." I'm on the shoulder," the voice said, female, young. "My car's dead. There's smoke. I don't know where I am. I saw your lights earlier. Please don't pass me." Matt inhaled sharply. "Okay," he said. "Okay. Evan, you hearing this?" "Yeah," I said, my heart thudding harder now. This was concrete. This was a person, not a recording. "Can you give us a mile marker?" Matt asked her. I think it said 214, she said, and then she coughed, wet and ugly. "Please." My foot eased off the throttle without me telling it to. The truck began to slow, engine note dropping. I hated how automatic it felt, how easy it was to slide into the role of the guy who stops. "Smoke from where?" I asked her. "Engine bay, inside." "I don't know," she said. I pulled over because the dash lit up. Then it stalled. I tried to start it and it just clicked. "There's a smell." "Fuel or electrical?" Matt asked. "I don't know," she said again, and it wasn't ignorance so much as panic. "It smells like plastic, electrical." That was better than fuel, but not by much. I pictured a hood up, a bundle of wires glowing like a toaster element. I pictured my trailer rolling past, the heat wash, the gust of air turning a bad situation into a worse one. "What kind of car?" I asked. She sniffed. "A silver Honda. Civic, I think. I'm sorry." "That's okay," I said. "You did good calling." The clean voice returned, immediate, stepping on her last word. "Eastbound unit. Do not stop. Secondary hazard present." Matt's voice hardened. "That's enough. Whoever you are, you're not law enforcement." Silence. Then the clean voice again, identical cadence. "Do not stop." I felt the hair on my arms lift, not because of anything mystical, but because of the precision. Whoever was doing this knew how to sound official enough to push buttons. "Evan," Matt said quietly, "this smells wrong. The timing, the mile marker, the way it cut her off." "Yeah," I said, and my mind did something unhelpful. It replayed the sound of a car ticking as it cooled, the smell of hot plastic and antifreeze, the way smoke can look harmless until it is. Daylight had given me those memories. Night was supposed to soften them. "What's your fuel?" Matt asked. "Quarter," I said. "Same," he said. "If we stop and idle too long, we're burning daylight we don't have. And if there's someone playing games out here, then stopping makes us targets," I finished. The woman coughed again. It came through the speaker like she was in my cab. "Please," she said. "I can hear something. A truck. I think it's you." My speed bled down to 50, 45. The road ahead brightened in my beams, a pale shape on the shoulder resolving into a car angled wrong, nose down in the gravel. Hazard lights flickered weakly, one side brighter than the other. There was smoke, not a plume, a lazy ribbon curling up from under the hood. "I see you," I said. "We're here." Matt said, "I'm a minute back." "Evan, don't block the lane. Pull ahead and angle in. Keep your trailer straight." The clean voice came back one last time, sharper now. "Do not stop. This is your final warning." "Shut it," Matt snapped, and twisted his squelch until the CB went quiet. Blessed silence rushed in, filled only by engine and wind. I eased onto the shoulder, tires crunching. The angle was bad, too steep a drop on the right, but there was no other option. I set the brakes, hazards on, engine idling higher than I liked. Heat washed up through the floor. The woman was standing outside her car, hugging herself. She looked small in my lights. White hoodie jeans, hair pulled into a messy knot. Her face shone with tears and the reflection of my markers. She was real. That mattered. "I'm Evan," I called through the cracked window. I didn't get out yet. "You okay to walk back a bit, away from the car?" She nodded too fast and took a few steps, then doubled over coughing again. "Name's Jess," she said when she caught her breath. 23, female. She gave a shaky laugh. "I'm sorry, I don't know why I said it like that. I watched too much true crime." "It's fine," I said. "You did the right thing." Matt's headlights appeared behind me, then his rig slid in, angled to shield us. He climbed down, older than me and moving like it, but steady. He kept his distance, eyes on the car, nose testing the air. "Electrical," he said. "No fuel smell. Hood's hot, don't open it." Jess nodded, eyes huge. "My phone's at 2%, she said. It kept trying to call someone. Then it rang and no one was there." I swallowed. "We'll get you out of here." "How?" she asked. I looked at my fuel gauge again. At the dark road ahead. At the fact that my engine was idling, burning minutes I didn't have. "There's a truck stop in Seligman," Matt said. 12 miles. "We can't tow you, but we can get you a ride." "Can I sit in your cab?" Jess asked, already shivering. just until a new sound cut across us, low and fast. An engine, but not a semi. Headlights appeared in the distance, weaving slightly. Matt stiffened. That's not highway patrol. The headlights slowed as they neared, then dipped toward the shoulder toward us. The clean voice crackled back onto the CB, somehow pushing past Matt's squelch, louder now, almost gleeful. Eastbound unit. You were warned. The car's engine revved. Matt looked at me, eyes sharp. Evan, he said, we need to move. Now. Jess turned, panic surging. What's happening? I had seconds to decide. Leave the car and load Jess into my cab, abandoning the Civic and risking the shoulder and my fuel. Or stay and block, hoping the approaching vehicle was help and not something worse. The engine noise grew louder. I reached for the door handle. The headlights came at us like a question you didn't want to answer. Evan's rig sat nose forward on the narrow shoulder, trailer straight, hazards blinking amber in the black. Matt had angled his truck behind, half in the lane, half on the gravel, a steel wall meant to make anyone slow down. The Civic was 10 yards ahead, tilted into the ditch, smoke still feathering from the seam of its hood. The approaching car dipped, corrected, dipped again. 2 bright cones of light jittering across scrub and fence posts. Get in, Evan said to Jess. He didn't open the door wide, just enough. The cab smelled like coffee and worn vinyl. She climbed up awkwardly, fingers shaking on the grab handle. Matt stayed on the ground, one hand lifted like he could wave the car off, the other holding his phone in front of him, screen glaring white. I've got no signal, he called up, voice tight. If this is a Samaritan, I'm gonna look like a paranoid idiot. Be one, Evan said. He was already putting the truck in gear, brakes hissing as he released them. His flaw was compliance, but his fear, stopping, was louder now. The day accident memory sat behind his eyes like an afterimage, insisting that standing still on a dark road is how bodies happen. The car slowed as it came close, then rolled past Matt's truck at maybe 20 miles an hour. It was a dark SUV, older, boxy. No plate lights. That might have been a busted bulb. Might have been on purpose. As it passed, a spotlight flicked on from the driver's side, sweeping across Matt's rig, then across Evan's cab window. White light, clinical. Jess yelped and ducked. Evan flinched, but kept both hands on the wheel. The spotlight cut off. The SUV didn't stop. It continued another 50 yards. Then the brake lights came on, and it pulled onto the shoulder ahead between Evan and the smoking Civic, blocking the narrow strip of gravel like a gate. Of course, Matt muttered. He climbed back in his truck fast, door slamming, air brakes coughing as he inched forward to stay close. Evan kept rolling, slow. The lane to his left was empty, but not safe, no wide shoulder, just a thin line and darkness. The road here was an old alignment, a frontage that paralleled I-40 somewhere out to the south, but you couldn't see the interstate from this stretch. Just desert and the occasional reflective sign. The SUV's driver's door opened. A man stepped out into Evan's beams, hand up to shield his face. He wasn't a trooper. No hat, no uniform, hoodie, jeans, a reflective vest that looked like it had been bought at a gas station. He stood in the center of the shoulder, not in the lane, like he knew exactly where Evan could and couldn't go. Evan cracked his window 2 inches. You need something? The man's voice carried, casual. Y'all okay? I saw the hazards. Thought you might need help. Jess was pressed into the passenger seat, arms wrapped around herself. That's him, she whispered. That's the voice. Evan's stomach clenched. "What do you mean, the calls?" she said. When my phone rang and no one answered, I heard a click like a radio, like this. It could have been panic making patterns. It could have been real. Matt's voice came through Evan's CB low. "Evan, don't talk. Roll your window up. That vest is brand new. He's not a tow." Evan watched the man's hands, empty. But his posture was wrong, too relaxed for someone walking into two idling semis at midnight. Like he'd practiced the scene. "Appreciate it," Evan said, keeping his tone flat. "We're taking her to Seligman for help." The man took a step closer, staying out of the lane. "Seligman's closed down at night. Most places. You'd be better calling county. I've got a radio." "From where?" Evan asked before he could stop himself. The man smiled like he'd caught something. "My car, back there." Evan's eyes flicked to the SUV. The driver's side window was dark. No interior light. No movement visible. Matt's CB clicked. "Evan, go. Use the lane. He can't stop 80,000 pounds." Evan swallowed. Going into the lane meant swinging the tractor left, trailer following, passing a stopped SUV on a narrow two-lane in the dark. It meant trusting there wasn't a second car coming up behind with no lights. It meant doing something drivers aren't supposed to do. Commit without being sure. His hands tightened until his wrists ached. He tried anyway. Evan eased left, front tires crossing the white line. The rig's nose swung out. Immediately, the SUV's passenger side door popped open. Not all the way, just enough to flash a sliver of interior light. Then it went dark again. Jess made a small sound in her throat. Someone S in there. Misdirection hit Evan like a wave. His brain tried to fill the dark with the worst thing it could invent. A gun. A masked face. A hand reaching for the door handle of his cab. But then the SUV's door slammed shut, and the dome light flicked back on for half a second, revealing something mundane and awful in a different way. A kid's car seat in the back, and a jumble of tools on the floor. The someone could have been a shifting bag. The door could have been catching on a slope. A latch not fully engaged. Explainable. Evan's pulse didn't drop. The man in the vest stepped closer to the lane now, forcing Evan to either stop or risk clipping him with the mirror. He held his palms out like a traffic cop. "Hey," he called, voice sharper. "Don't do that. You'll kill somebody." Evan hit the horn one long blast that tore through the desert. The sound felt good, big, unignorable. The man flinched, half a step back. Matt laid on his horn too, a deeper bellow. For a second, the night was just air vibrating. The man turned his head, like he was listening to something we couldn't hear. Then he pivoted and walked back toward his SUV, quick. "Go," Matt shouted over the CB. Evan committed. He swung wide into the lane, the trailer's wheels crunching over the edge line. The rig shuddered as it passed the SUV with inches to spare. Evan's mirror cleared the man by maybe 2 feet. Jess held her breath so hard her shoulders rose. They were past him. For 3 seconds, Evan felt the cleanest kind of relief, movement, distance, the road pulling them away. Then the engine warning chimed. A small orange icon on Evan's dash. Low air pressure. "What?" Evan whispered, eyes snapping to the needles. The air gauge dipped from 120 to 90 to 70. Matt's voice came instantly. "Evan, you losing air?" "Yeah," Evan said, throat tight. "Fast." "You got a line leak," Matt said. "Or a valve." Or someone had done something while Evan was focused on the SUV. The thought landed heavy. Evan feathered the brakes, trying not to dump the system. The rig began to slow anyway, safety systems doing what they were designed to do. Protect everyone by taking control away from the driver when the air wasn't there. His speed bled off. 40, 30, 25. The road ahead sloped gently down toward a shallow cut where the frontage dipped under an old overpass, concrete legs rising like pale bones. Evan could see it in his beams. The underpass was the only structure for miles, and it tightened the road into a tunnel of shadow. "Don't stop under that," Matt said, reading the terrain. "Keep it rolling if you can. If you stop, you're stuck." "I'm trying," Evan said through clenched teeth. He pumped carefully, but the needle kept dropping. A hiss filled the cab, faint but unmistakable, like a tire losing air. Jess heard it too and turned her head, eyes wide. "Is that us?" she asked. "Yes," Evan said. "Stay calm." The misdirection earlier, door flicker, imagined threat had been a warm-up. This was the real trap, procedural, mechanical, totally grounded, and perfectly timed. Behind them, headlights appeared again. The SUV had turned around. It came fast now, closing the gap. Matt's rig was between Evan and the SUV. But Matt was dealing with his own problem. His engine revved, then hesitated, then revved again, like he was trying to keep pace without getting too close and rear-ending Evan's slowing trailer. "Evan," Matt said, voice strained, "if you're leaking air, you're gonna auto-apply brakes. You need to get somewhere you can't be boxed." "There's nowhere," Evan said. The shoulder narrowed as the road funneled toward the underpass. Scrub close on both sides. A ditch on the right, deep enough to tip a tractor if he dropped a wheel. The air gauge hit 40. A warning buzzer screamed, sharp and insistent. Evan's hands shook on the wheel. Sweat slicked his palms despite the cold. His private fear, stopping, wasn't abstract anymore. It was a mechanical countdown, a needle falling toward zero, forcing him to do the one thing he least wanted. The rig slowed to 15 as the underpass swallowed the light and threw it back in pale reflections. Concrete walls appeared on either side, close enough to make the trailer's tires sound louder, every pebble pinging the metal like small knocks. The air gauge hit 20. The brakes grabbed hard. The truck lurched and stopped, half under the overpass, half out, perfectly placed in a choke point where the road was narrowest, and the echo made everything sound closer than it was. Evan sat frozen for one beat, listening to the engine idle, to Jess's breathing, to the distant roar of the SUV approaching, and the way sound bounced under the concrete like footsteps. Matt's truck screeched to a stop behind, tires skidding slightly on gravel. "Point of no return," Matt said softly over the CB, and Evan hated how true it sounded. Because now they weren't choosing left or right. They were stationary. They were boxed by geography. And the SUV's headlights flooded the mouth of the underpass as it rolled in, slow and confident, as if it had known exactly where they'd end up. The SUV stopped just short of the shadow line, headlights filling the underpass with hard white light. The sound changed immediately, engines louder, voices sharper, everything echoing back a half second late, so it felt like there were more people than there were. Evan killed his engine. The silence afterward was heavy, the kind that makes you aware of your own breathing and the faint tick of hot metal cooling. The warning buzzer died with the engine, leaving a ringing in his ears. Matt's CB crackled once. "Jess," he said, calm in a way that took effort, "stay in Evan's cab. Doors locked." Jess nodded, even though Matt couldn't see her, and clicked the lock down with a decisive little snap. The man in the reflective vest stepped into the underpass, boots crunching. Up close, he looked younger than Evan had expected, late 20s, maybe early 30s. Clean-shaven, tired eyes. The vest glowed like a target in the beams. "Okay," the man said, hands out again. "Let's all take it easy." "Back up," Matt called from behind, his voice bouncing off concrete. "Get back to your vehicle." The man ignored him and angled toward Evan's driver's side door. He stopped a few feet away, careful not to cross into the lane where a passing car might clip him. "You got a leak," the man said, nodding at Evan's dash. "Airline happens. Lucky you stopped before you lost brakes entirely." Evan didn't answer. His heart hammered so hard it felt like it was shaking his vision. He kept his hands visible on the wheel. "I can help you," the man went on. "I've got tools. We can get you rolling enough to limp to Seligman. But I need you to shut everything down and step out." Matt's laugh was short and sharp. "You're not touching his truck." The man's jaw tightened. "Then you're gonna sit here all night." Jess leaned closer to Evan, whispering, "He knows too much." Evan thought of the peeled tape on the mile marker, the looping route, the clean voice saying unit. This wasn't random. This was practiced. "Who are you?" Evan asked finally. The man smiled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Someone who doesn't want anyone hurt." Behind him, the SUV's passenger door opened. Not all the way, just enough. "Door," Jess hissed. Matt swore. Engine revved suddenly, loud and aggressive, the sound filling the underpass. He lurched forward a foot, then stopped, tires squealing. The move was a bluff, but a good one. The man spun, shouting, "Hey, that was the opening." Evan slammed his door open into the man's shin. The impact was dull and solid. The man cried out, stumbling back into the SUV's light. Evan didn't wait. He dropped from the cab hard, landing awkwardly, pain flaring up his knee. He barely noticed. "Matt, now," Evan yelled. Matt surged forward, angling his rig tighter, pinning the SUV's front bumper against the concrete wall with inches to spare. Metal kissed concrete with a screech. The SUV's headlights shattered, plunging the underpass into a strobing mess of hazards and reflections. The passenger door flew open. Another man scrambled out, older, heavier, clutching a crowbar. He froze when he saw Matt's grill inches from his chest, air brakes hissing like a warning animal. "Back," Matt roared. The crowbar clanged to the ground. The first man staggered, clutching his leg, vest smeared with dust. He looked at Evan now with something ugly in his eyes. "You didn't have to," Evan moved without thinking. He ran to the front of his truck, ducked under the bumper, hands searching along the air lines like he'd done 100 times in daylight. His fingers found it fast. A clean slice in the red line, edges sharp. Not a blowout, a cut. Sabotage. "Matt," Evan shouted, voice shaking. "They cut my line." Sirens wailed in the distance. For one stupid, hopeful second, Evan thought it was real help. Then he realized the sound wasn't getting closer. It was looping, bouncing, coming from the SUV's rear. A cheap speaker wired into the cab. The clean voice again, tinny now. "Do not stop." Matt laughed, breathless. "That's all you got," the second man bolted. He ducked between the rigs, disappearing into the dark beyond the underpass. Matt started to go after him, then stopped, thinking better of it. The first man tried to follow, dragging his bad leg. Evan stepped into his path, crowbar in hand now, lifted but shaking. "Sit," Evan said. The man looked at the crowbar, then at Evan's face. Something shifted. He sat, back against the SUV, breathing hard. Headlights appeared on the far end of the underpass. Real ones this time, steady, high, paired with the unmistakable wash of red and blue. The relief that hit Evan nearly dropped him to his knees. The sheriff's cruiser rolled in slow, careful. 2 deputies stepped out, hands on their belts, eyes taking in the scene. The pinned SUV, the smoking Civic farther back, the severed air line dangling like a vein. "Evening," one deputy said, female. "Calm. Let's all take a breath." After, things happened in pieces. Jess cried when the deputy handed her a blanket, then apologized for crying, then cried harder. She had a mild burn on her forearm from leaning against her car earlier. It was red and blistering, nothing life-threatening, but it shook her more than she expected. Matt's truck had a bent fender and a shredded marker light. He didn't care. His hands shook when the adrenaline drained, and he sat on his step with his head in his hands until the shaking slowed. Evan's knee swelled fast, pain blooming hot and insistent. He'd torn something jumping down. He knew it even before the medic told him. He accepted the ice pack without comment. The deputies cuffed the man in the vest. He didn't fight. He stared at the ground, jaw working, as the siren loop died in the SUV behind him. They found the second man an hour later, limping along the fence line, crowbar gone, shoes full of sand. The explanation came haltingly, ugly in its simplicity. They'd been looping drivers off the interstate, using a pirate transmitter and GPS spoofing, nothing fancy, just enough interference to confuse cheap navigation and tired minds. They targeted lone trucks on frontage roads, cut airlines, force stops, rob cargo or shake drivers down for help. Paper towels weren't worth much. Evan knew that, but he also knew desperation didn't always make sense. When it was over, the underpass went quiet again. Too quiet. Evan sat on his bumper, knee throbbing, watching the deputies tape off the cut line. The mile marker 214 sign stood at the edge of the light, green and ordinary, its peeled tape catching the beam just so. Matt joined him, careful with his step. "You did good," he said. Evan nodded. He didn't feel good. He felt hollowed out. Jess walked over, blanket wrapped tight. "Thank you," she said, voice hoarse. "For stopping." Evan swallowed. The word stuck. "Yeah," he said. "You're welcome." Later, when the trucks were finally moving again, slower now, patched enough to limp to lights and people, Evan glanced at his dashcam preview. His face stared back, pale and older somehow, eyes still too wide. The road ahead was clear. He drove anyway with both hands locked on the wheel, every shadow under the overpasses, a little too sharp, the echo of the clean voice lingering in his head like a bruise you keep pressing to see if it's still there. Morning came in thin and pale, like it wasn't sure it belonged here. The desert cooled fast once the sun cleared the horizon, heat draining out of the concrete underpass and leaving everything smelling faintly of dust and spilled coolant. Evan sat on the edge of an ambulance bumper with his pant leg rolled up, knee wrapped tight and ugly with swelling. The medic finished taping, gave him a look that said, "Don't be brave later," and moved on. "You're lucky," she said, professional and kind. "Sprain, maybe a small tear. You didn't shatter anything." "Lucky," Evan echoed, tasting the word. Matt leaned against his rig nearby, jacket draped over his shoulders like he'd aged 10 years overnight. A deputy took photos of the bent fender and scribbled notes on a clipboard. Insurance, reports, the language of things that continue. Jess sat on the curb, with a paper cup of water clutched in both hands. Her burn was bandaged now, neat and white, the kind that would heal, but leave a reminder if you looked close. She stared at the road like she was waiting for it to do something else. The sheriff, a broad man with a gray mustache and a voice that didn't rush, went over the timeline again. Pirate transmitter found in the SUV. Cheap GPS spoofer wired under the dash. Tools cataloged. Charges listed. He spoke like someone who'd seen variations of this before and knew better than to promise it was rare. "We'll be reaching out," he said, tapping his pen. Statements, court dates. Might take a while, Evan nodded. He'd learned patience the hard way. They cut his air line clean and temporarily fixed it, enough to get him to a proper shop. The deputy showed him where the blade had gone in, precise and practiced. "Someone who knew trucks," the deputy said. Evan looked at the nicked rubber and felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning. Jess stood when they told her a tow was on the way, hesitated, then walked over to Evan and Matt. "I don't know what to say," she said. Her voice was steadier now, like shock had burned off and left something brittle underneath. "I keep thinking if you hadn't stopped." Evan held up a hand. "Don't," she nodded, eyes wet anyway. "Thank you," she said, and meant it in a way that didn't need a reply. They watched her go back to the curb, shoulders hunched, phone charging from a deputy's power bank. Normal things. Mundane logistics. Matt cleared his throat. "You heading on after the shop?" Evan looked down the road, where the frontage merged back toward a more traveled stretch. Daylight made it look harmless, just asphalt and scrub. "I don't know," he said. Honesty came easier when he was tired. "Might take a day." Matt studied him, then nodded. "Yeah," he said. "Me too." They stood in companionable quiet, listening to the tick of cooling engines. Somewhere, a semi blew past on the interstate, a long, low rush of sound like weather moving through. By late morning, the scene broke apart. Cones came up. The underpass emptied. The mile marker 214 stood alone again, green and dumb and innocent, its peeled tape catching the sun like it always had. Evan drove slow to the shop in Flagstaff, knee throbbing, every vibration of the cab sending a reminder up his leg. The mechanic whistled low when he saw the line, shook his head. "Could have been bad," he said. He said it like 100 other mechanics had said it before, about 100 other things. Evan waited in the greasy plastic chair, watching daytime TV with the sound off. He texted dispatch. He called his sister and didn't tell her everything. He iced his knee. He drank bad coffee. That night, he checked into a motel with a flickering vacancy sign and a carpet that smelled like old smoke. He lay on the bed fully dressed, lights on, listening to the hum of the air conditioner cycling like a breath he didn't trust. Sleep came in pieces. Every time he closed his eyes, he was back under the overpass, sound bouncing wrong, the needle dropping, the moment when stopping stopped being a choice. He woke with his heart racing, hand searching for the wheel. At 3 a.m, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He stared at it until it stopped. The next day, Matt called. They talked about paperwork and routes and nothing at all. Matt joked about taking a week of daylight runs, said it like a joke, but didn't laugh. Jess sent a message later, a thank you again. A photo of her car finally loaded onto a flatbed, the caption "Home soon." Evan typed a reply and erased it twice before sending something simple and safe. Weeks passed. The story faded into a report number, then a court date, then a plea. Evan went back to work. changed things without announcing it to anyone. No more frontage roads at night. No shortcuts that saved 3 minutes. If a map app offered an alternative, he ignored it. He stopped answering unknown calls altogether. Sometimes, late on a long straight stretch, he'd pass a green sign and feel his chest tighten until he read the number and let the breath go. Sometimes he'd hear a voice on the CB that sounded too clean and reach up to adjust the squelch, heart hammering, until the static swallowed it. The road didn't care. The road never does. One afternoon, months later, Evan stopped at a diner outside Winslow. Sunlight poured through the windows. Families laughed. Coffee refilled itself. On the wall was a collage of Route 66 photos, old cars, neon signs, smiling couples. In one corner, half-cropped, was a picture of a green mile marker. The number wasn't visible. Evan ate his pie slowly, savoring the normalcy. When he paid, he left a little extra without thinking about why. Outside, his truck waited, patched and serviceable, humming like it always had. He climbed in, adjusted the mirror, and caught his own eyes in the glass. They looked tired. They looked older. They looked like someone who would keep driving anyway. As he pulled back onto the highway, the radio crackled. Static. Then a voice, human, imperfect, breaking on syllables, asked if anyone had coffee to spare at the next stop. Evan smiled despite himself. He keyed the mic. "Yeah," he said. "I do." Behind him, the road unspooled, ordinary and endless, with just enough shadow at the edges to remind him what it could still hide. And that's the end of today's chilling tale. If you enjoyed this story and want more nights full of suspense, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to Mia Horror Stories, and turn on the bell so you never miss a scare. I've got plenty more stories waiting for you, so stick around and check out the other videos on the channel. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay safe and don't look behind you.